You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm your host, Leanne Langford. I'm the president of TrainingPros. TrainingPros is a contract L&D staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find you the consultant to start your project with confidence. Really excited about my guest today. Our guest today is a former client of TrainingPros who is now part of the TrainingPros team. She's our latest new member of the team. Frankie Robinson is our new Learning and Enablement Strategist here at TrainingPros. She's not as new as you would think, but she's still our newest team member. Welcome, Frankie.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just very excited to be here. So thank you.
Well, happy to have you. We're so excited. So why don't you start off by sharing with our audience a little bit about your new role with TrainingPros?
Yeah, so the role, Learning and Enablement Strategist. I'm so excited to be here with this role. So as you mentioned, I was a client before joining TrainingPros and have been in learning and development for a while. So this is a really great opportunity for me to still use the skills that I've spent so much time to build, while also learning a little bit about business acumen and marketing as well. So pulling in that expertise while helping with podcasts and blogs and attending the trade shows and just being able to leverage what I do know in a way that can help TrainingPros. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're excited because we're happy to have you. So I would love it if you could share with us a little bit about your journey into corporate learning and development, because I think it's one that will speak to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's the start is what many people, I think, have experienced, right? There's kind of two paths into L&D. So you have one path that kind of comes this academic education route. And then there's the side where you have the high performers who are doing so well that they end up mentoring and enter through L&D that way. I definitely was the educator academic route. And so I started out as a teacher and always wanted to be a teacher. Since I was 5 years old, it was like that tunnel vision of I'm going to be a teacher. And I did. I became a teacher. And I loved it. I was an elementary school teacher, taught kindergarten and second grade. I did a little bit of homeschooling in the middle of that for another family, and also was able to teach abroad and loved all of it. But one thing I learned pretty quickly about myself is that I'm very goal-oriented, and I love to continue growing, and I love to continue learning. And so I met that big life goal, and I was the teacher, and it was kind of like, so now what do I do? What do I do now? And I really dabbled in a lot of different things, started learning more about tech. I ended up being an early adopter for like Google Classroom, various different things at that time. And a lot of what I was practicing landed me a role in front-end development, which is kind of a detour in this whole synopsis, right? So I ended up in front-end development and really enjoyed that amidst education. So the natural step to me was to look into how I can merge both of those worlds together, and got my learning design and technology master's degree, found my way into L&D first through freelancing, and then into the corporate world through the connections that I have built over time. And yes, I've been with 2 different companies since, all of this. And now I'm here with TrainingPros, really excited to be here. But I don't know how interesting that is, but it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of people that are teachers that want to make the move into corporate, and it's very hard.
Yeah.
And to hear a success story of someone who's done it is exciting to them because it's like, okay, let me figure out what she did and what else I can be doing to make
You know,
this.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, on that note, if this were a takeaway for anybody, I would absolutely say networking sounds so easy to say, but find the communities around you where you can connect with people in the industry and in the field, potentially collaborate on a project, whether it's nonprofit or something along those lines, where you can build not just the people that you can know and potentially reach out to, but so that your name is top of mind for them when they hear about an opportunity. Because then they will reach out to you. And that's how I got my first corporate role, is that a former professor actually heard about the role. It was forwarded to him. And then he forwarded it to me, knowing that I was looking for something. And I was able to land that particular role through that. So, so more than networking, but really establishing what you can do so that people think of you when they need it.
So I really love that because some of the advice that I've given for years and years to people who are trying to get into corporate L&D has been go to ATD, meet people, connect, network, and then volunteer to do some free work. Volunteer to be a free intern for someone. And they look at me like I've run like a second head or something. Like, no, seriously, until they see what you can do, they're not recommending.
They're not going to think about it. Yeah. Yeah. It's so critical. And one thing that I've learned is to, and this is something that I've learned that's kind of really for any field, is to try not being too much of a wallflower and in the background. And that's something that I, by default, used to do a lot. I would, I loved helping and I loved being a part of really any process. But I was not at the front of the room. I was not, I was shying away from the spotlight a lot. And so I would say if people are looking for that, really challenge yourself to get out there so that people see you and they really can associate that work to you. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's great advice. And there are a lot of people who are very happy to stay in the background. So,
Yeah.
Much of your corporate learning and development experience has been in leadership development. How do you see trust playing a role in L&D partnerships between organizations and external consultants?
So this one is, I love this topic. This is a topic I love this topic so much. So I worked on leadership development for 2 different companies now. And one thing that I enjoy doing, and I tend to enjoy doing this in general anyway, is to find what studies are out there that support whatever it is that we're putting in our trainings. And one very common learner demographic that we have in leadership are new to title managers, right? Like high performers, but completely new to the role, doesn't really have a foundation in management, and they're going through this new to title training. So what do they need to do to be successful? And that launched this research that I went into for fun. And there's not a lot of studies out there to support this. I'm gonna start there, but I found it fascinating. There is a study based out of Malaysia, and it's a very small sample size, like 100 people. And it was 100 employees, so fewer number of leaders. And the study was about the impact of specific behavior types on the perception of trust in the supervisors. And yeah, so, right, I thought that was fascinating. And they broke the behaviors down into unscheduled and scheduled behaviors. So if we were to think of scheduled behaviors like one-on-ones or strategic alignment meetings, team meetings, anything that would be a scheduled behavior, weekly, monthly, however that is. And then you have the unscheduled behaviors. So you have your check-ins, the, hey, I saw this, I thought about you, the, oh my gosh, there's this fire going on, I need your help, come help me. And you're there, open door policy kind of concept. So you have the unscheduled behaviors. And what they did is they studied the impact of those behaviors on what so many of us know is like the three components of trust. So you have integrity, benevolence, and competence. And we could say, oh, my team trusts me, but really it's about their perception of you. And we can't really dictate whether or not someone perceives us to care about them, to have the ability to do our jobs, to truly do what we say we're going to do with the integrity piece. And that's where those behaviors came in. So it was, how did those behaviors impact all of that? And they found correlation, very small correlation, because it was very small sample size, definitely not causation, not the North American market. So I understand grain of salt with all of this. But I found it fascinating because they found that if you, the scheduled behaviors, having your one-on-ones, doing the team meetings, all of that, it impacted all three components of that, how they saw your benevolence, how they saw your integrity and competence. And the unscheduled behaviors had a decent impact on benevolence, right? Because you're checking in with them, you're showing that you care, but it also showed an impact on ability. Because if you have a fire and you need your supervisor to help you, you're there to help them. So it shows that you have the ability to help them. You have that competence. When I think about consultants in, working with different organizations and having your clients that you're working with, I think of those behaviors and how that impacts the trust that you have from the organization to you as that consultant. And so thinking of what are the scheduled behaviors that you do regularly that can build that trust, that can build their perception that you care about them, that you know their business, that you have the ability to be able to support them when they, have a critical need, someone resigned at the last minute, right? Like all these little things that can happen, they know that you're there to support them with that. And then we have the unscheduled behaviors. The, hey, I remember that you were on vacation last week. Welcome back. I hope you're getting settled back in. Things are going really well over here. Those unscheduled pieces of just kind of maintaining those relationships, it builds that perception of trust. And so that's how I see that impacting.
All right. So in your experience, what's the most common reason that training initiatives fail to achieve impact?
That leans back into trust to me. And so if we were to go on client, so whether or not you're an internal or an external consultant, right? You're an internal L&D associate or you're consulting from the outside coming in. The trust that you have from your client is not, to me, is not the indicator of success for that training initiative. I think the client themselves, yes, you need their buy-in. But the key to me is to have the buy-in from the stakeholders who could completely put a halt to that impact after you're gone, right? And so that could be a leader, but it could be a highly influential associate within the department that's completing the training. And having those stakeholders and having their buy-in for a training. So for instance, if you're going through the analysis phase and you really are trying to figure out the root cause analysis, and maybe you do figure it out. You know what the root cause is. It's done. It's good to go. It's, from my perspective, very critical to have those highly influential ambassadors to be a part of that conversation. because you could still have an amazing solution. And it really could be exactly what the organization needs. And you launch it, and maybe it's a live training and you have the job aids and it's in the Teams folder and it's all there. And then a month passes and 2 months pass. People forget the job aid is there. They forget about some of the content that they learned about. But that highly influential ambassador is still in that department. They're still there and they're still influencing. But if you have their buy-in from the start and they have some ownership of it and they're proud of it and they're excited about what's being pulled in, a month, 2 months, 3 months out, that person will still reference it. Remember what we did with TrainingPros? Remember what we did with the L&D team? It's there. It's in our Teams folder over here. Remember? Like, I'll just forward the email to you. We have it over here in this email. And that can help with that long-term stability and impact for trainings.
Thank you for that and sharing that. There's been some amazing changes in the world of L&D in the last few years. Everybody is overwhelmed with the amount of change, and I'm particularly impressed with your understanding of how different L&D departments are using AI, artificial intelligence, for L&D. Can you talk about some examples of how you've seen these departments using AI to be more effective?
I will have to give some big kudos to the team I was with before.
Okay.
They are doing some pretty amazing things over there. So AI is pretty new, and I really started digging into it 2.5 years ago, which is still very recent and a little bit late in the game compared to when it first came out and when people really started jumping in and really understanding what's going on with AI. But all that to say, I mentioned that I have a little bit of that front-end development background. I am not a front-end developer. I don't claim that role. I did it, and I did it. But I would not apply for a front-end development. I don't believe that I could pull my weight. But that knowledge did help me with kind of understanding how AI works and what people meant when they're talking about language models. I could not develop it myself, but just that understanding helped me be able to really dive in and start playing with the tool and trying to figure out how it works. And how it works today is so different than how it worked when I first started playing with it. And it's going to be different next week. It just evolves so quickly. My previous team adopted Sana Labs maybe 3 months before I left. So my experience with Sana Labs is limited to that 3 months. But I will say that in those 3 months, it is a tool that functions very differently from any other LMS that I have used in my past. But one of the key differences that was very mind-boggling to me, very fascinating to me, is that you could, I'm going to call it the search bar. In the search bar, you could ask it a question and just, comfortable, just question. And it would not only answer the question, it would also cite the trainings that you could take in relation to that question. And they had an add-on, and we did not have this, but I know it exists. It was a knowledge management system as well. So if you wanted to have job aid and you wanted to have this shared source of documentation of processes, etc., it could all be in this one hub. So what we're very familiar with today in the workspace, where you might have information in SharePoint, then you have your LMS, and then you have these different places for the processes being documented. The job aids are over here, and this is over there. What Sana is doing is having this one hub where it's all documented in one space, and then you ask the system, what's the code that I'm supposed to use for this type of sale? And it tells you the answer and where it pulled that information from. And that is just amazing to me. There are other elements too that I've seen there as well, but that as far as like AI and its use in L&D, one of the hurdles that I think a lot of companies are going to have though is how to best document their processes, their trainings, their information so that the AI knows to pull it properly. And I think that's something that is both on the organizations to be able to finesse, but also on the AI to have those improvements in AI to be able to do that maybe without as much oversight on documentation styles. So it's pretty fun to think of where things are going.
Yeah, so it sounds like Sana Labs is not just providing a learning management system or a learning experience platform, they're also providing integrated performance support so that this would be the one-stop shop for the whole company trying to do something that they may not do every day.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm missing out on a lot of the features that they're offering, but yeah.
It makes me want to go have a demo of Sana
Yeah,
Labs. Yeah, absolutely.
never run into a commercial for them. Sorry.
No, it does sound very interesting. And of course, a lot of companies are obviously using it for content generation, brainstorming, streamlining stuff. Have you seen any other? I know you built for us a nice sample of how you can use ChatGPT for simulation.
Yeah, there is. Oh my goodness, what you can't do with it. I don't know what you can't do with it. I know it's not perfect, right? And we do need to keep the human element of that oversight in there because it definitely will spit out things that are too generic or inaccurate or cite things that don't actually exist, right?
Right.
But yeah, so one of probably the most fun project that I was able to work on was on creating a custom GPT that allowed sales associates to practice negotiation tactics that they learned in a course. And it was done with ChatGPT. And with the custom GPT, that what it would do is there was a little button. It was one of the action buttons that you could select. And it would say something like, call Leanne. And the learners already knew who Leanne was. They knew that Leanne, in this particular situation, Leanne was a doctor. And this was her resume, this was her CV, her past experience. And this is the job that you want her to go for. This is the job that you want her to take. And this is for a locum tenens example. And so you would click call, and then it would say, hi, Leanne speaking. And you would just start having this conversation with the GPT. And the cool thing with ChatGPT is that you have that little speaker icon. So if you click it, it actually, you are talking back and forth with Leanne, the doctor. And when you said bye, that's what triggered it to switch roles. And it went from being Leanne, the doctor, to the negotiation coach. And it would switch and say, okay, let's look at how this call went. And it would give very specific feedback based off of what the learners learned in the negotiation class and tell them, you did some really great labeling. You labeled the emotions really well, or you were able to really mirror back, the last 3 words that they said really well. Like whatever those tactics were, it would echo that back to them as a strength. And it would also say, hey, this is an area for improvement. I said this, that could have been a really great opportunity for you to lean in a little bit more and figure out why I didn't want to take the job. And it was because, I don't know, my kids had a tennis tournament that weekend or something, because it was fed a little bit more information on the back end than the learners knew. And if they asked the right questions and demonstrated that empathy, they were able to uncover those pain points and hopefully win that call. So it was a really cool thing. I will say that with ChatGPT's most recent upgrade, so when it upgraded to 5, the functionality shifted a little bit. And so it upgraded to 5 after I left work. So after I came to TrainingPros, that's when that update happened, right? So so I did check in to see how things are going. They're like, everything's good. We're able to fix it. We're good to go. And I was like, oh no, this thing isn't going to work now. And so it sounds like they were able to fix it. And then for us, I played with it and put together one for consultants to be able to practice those intake calls, the initial intake calls. And really curious how realistic that one is, because I'm more familiar with intakes in the internal capacity and not really from like the external, as an external consultant. So really interested in seeing how that goes.
Well, that sounds like a really great use case on how you can use AI to, without spending a lot of money, to really make impactful training. What is that one book that you recommend to everyone in learning and development?
I recommend this book to everybody. I love this book. And I talked to you about this book. But The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I know that everyone already knows it. It's been around for a very long time. But it's a book that I will refer back to pretty regularly, just to kind of remind myself of different pieces, or, okay, perspective shifting, which is a big part of it, is shifting your paradigm, right? And sometimes we need that little reminder of shifting the way that we look at different things. But I would say that looking at the first 3 habits even of this book could really shape even the approach to project management, the approach to strategic alignment across an organization. I know the first 3 habits are really for your individual growth, and it's not really meant to be about your influence on people around you necessarily. It's supposed to feel like you grow first within, and then you branch out and you start growing with the people around you. So I do understand that. But those first 3 habits, I think, if you start working on them internally, you'll start to see the impact around the people, with the people around you as well. And so I would recommend this.
I can't agree more. I mean, that is a great book. It's just an excellent thing to keep close by, and shifting your mindset is a huge part of being successful with work, with your kids, with your spouse. It really does make a big difference.
It does. It's hard to do.
Yes.
It's hard to do because you have to recognize it first.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that, I literally have hanging up right behind my screen here, I can see it right now, is Covey's Circle of Control.
Oh, yes.
Because I've been using it now so long that it's almost instinct. As soon as I feel anxiety, depression, just anything, that anger, I go directly to the circle. Okay, what is the internal talk I'm using on myself that's making me feel this? And then I use the techniques to change my internal dialogue, and it changes my whole perspective.
It's so good. It's so good, especially when you start getting, and I think anxiety is something a lot of people can relate to today. Just in general, it's just, speaking of AI, right? Like AI has us moving faster, and it helps us get things done faster, but that doesn't mean that we have room to breathe. You know what I mean? We're moving faster, the pace is picking up, expectations are going up. And so, yes, it's helping us move faster. It doesn't mean that we as people are able to slow down. And so that anxiety of, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, or whatever it might be, sometimes it is outside of our control. And sometimes, that reminder of not just like, oh, sit back and just relax, because that advice never works for me. I'll sit back and I'll ruminate, but I won't sit back and relax. And so I find that, the circle of control to be very helpful as well. In fact, I should probably look back because I can't think of the strategies right now. I could think of like the circle of influence.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Circle of influence, going into controls.
Well, that's true. Yeah, because if you're going in, that's the control. If you're going out, you're thinking of influence.
Getting away from any control or any influence.
I need to go back and look at that one again.
I use that a lot when the shutdown happened because a lot of my team members experienced a lot of anxiety over it. And that was a good technique to help them. It probably didn't get them alleviated of all anxiety, but at least the total freak out and the pounding heart and all that stuff.
I can only imagine when you own your business and the success of your business is completely reliant on you, that when shutdowns happen, you feel like if something is reliant on you, it also can feel like it's because of you. So when things start to shut down, I can only imagine that. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And taking ownership of that when wasn't in really anyone's control.
The only thing in my control was how I responded.
Yeah.
How I reacted. And so that's what I controlled.
How would you navigate that conversation? If you don't mind me asking.
About the shutdown?
Yeah. So, I mean,
well, you start asking them, okay, what are the thoughts in your head that are making you feel anxiety about this? And then you start getting them to reframe those thoughts. So, for instance, with me, I probably went through a half a day of anxiety over the shutdown. But I immediately had my circle of influence out. Like, okay, the things going in my head. We're going to go bankrupt. We're going to, those kind of go out of business. Ugh. And I said, okay, wait a minute. I'm manifesting all these negative things. What can I change about what I'm thinking? So in other words, it's like, okay, what can I do to reduce our costs so we can outlast this? What can we do in the interim? What other products can we offer that might be helpful during the shutdown? What, this type of question. And just had to change my questions, change the inner dialogue. But first is awareness. Well, Frankie, you have been an amazing guest today. I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast. As you know, TrainingPros has a charity of planting trees. And this time around, we're going to plant 5 trees in your honor. So you got to contribute 5 trees to the world by being a guest on our podcast. You're welcome. And so we've planted over 5,000 trees to date. Our goal is to get to 10,000. So you're helping us along that way. And that is the end of this episode of Learning Leader Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed this episode talking to Frankie Robinson, and we hope you will join us again next week to hear from another learning leader in another industry.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.